Good morning. I call the meeting to order. I want to welcome all of our witnesses and thank you all for being here. I think this is going to be a fun hearing and showcase entrepreneurship at its best. Today we are meeting to learn more about American small businesses and how they are changing healthcare through innovations in mobile medical applications, or apps. According to a Pew Center report, a majority of adults in the United States now own a smartphone. Our overall economy is still weak, but the apps economy seems to be thriving. Some studies have found that mobile devices and their apps are responsible for creating over 500,000 jobs, and global revenue from mobile apps exceeded $20 billion last year. Apps that can help individuals monitor their health are becoming more prevalent and popular. Worldwide, an estimated 500 million smartphones will be using a medical app by 2015. And 78% of top app developers are small businesses. In fact, entrepreneurs have pioneered apps for purposes as varied as tracking fitness routines to reading a patient's digital images. These are groundbreaking medical apps to help empower consumers to make better healthcare decisions, allow patients to access critical health data in real time, and guide physicians to diagnose or monitor patient conditions. Apps may also help reduce hospital readmissions and cut the cost of managing chronic diseases. To help these get these products to the public, small businesses have to navigate a complex web of challenges, product financing, marketing, taxes, and regulations. We are eager to learn more about these innovations as well as the challenges that all of you face each day in bringing your apps to market. Today's hearing format is a little bit different. Each witness will be allocated the customary 5 minutes, but during that time, when they do testify, they're going to actually be demonstrating their apps for us on the 2 screens. As they explain this app, we've got the 2 screens on either side, which will help visually. We appreciate the participation of all of our witnesses, and we do look forward to your testimony. I now yield to Ranking Member Janice Hahn for her opening remarks.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You're right. Mobile medical apps are really a really exciting area of innovation that has tremendous promise for American small businesses and healthcare providers and patients across the country. These applications on smartphones, tablets, web platforms stand to dramatically improve the practice of medicine in this country, reducing inefficiencies, confusion, and disorganization that cost money and lives. For doctors, these applications can help put more patient data in their hands so they can make more informed decisions more efficiently wherever they are. And for patients, these applications can cut through the fog of overlapping medical instructions and prescription medication schedules, providing reminders and helping people to stay on track. This is not just a matter of convenience, and it's not just some cool-looking new toy. Medical errors kill as many as 98,000 people a year, including over 7,000 from medication errors. That's more than die every year in car accidents, breast cancer, or AIDS. Bringing all of a patient's medical information together and putting it literally into the hands of that patient and their doctors could help avoid these deadly errors. I'm particularly excited about what these applications could do for disadvantaged and the elderly population, the most vulnerable with chronic conditions who have a hard time sorting through all their medications without help. If anyone has ever taken care of someone with a chronic disease or even recovering from a serious illness, you know how confusing and difficult that can be and how handy and easy to use application that provides reminders and tracks treatment could be. I want to be sure that these exciting advances in mobile medicine do not leave behind those people that may not be able to afford a smartphone. And on top of all those great benefits to these apps, delivering less costly, more efficient care that makes our nation healthier, this is a field where small business can really lead the way. I think that's a really exciting and really American prospect. U.S. small businesses remaking our world with their innovation and ingenuity. It's estimated that mobile technology industry will grow to be valued at roughly $25 billion and account for an estimated 500,000 jobs. The development of mobile medical apps has steadily increased, with roughly 27,000 unique apps currently on the market and about 500 new ones being launched every month. So when you say, is there an app for that? There will be. Small developers are critical to the success of mobile medical industry. Last year, the mobile healthcare sector saw venture capital investments reach more than $900 million, and in 2013, it's expected to exceed $1 billion. However, small MMA developers' ability to continue receiving such investment is highly dependent on the regulatory front. That's why it's important for us to understand how they bring their apps to the market and ensure that the process does not hinder their growth, which is why I'm glad you're holding this hearing today, and we want to be a part of the solution to this. Thank you, and I yield back.
If subcommittee members have an opening statement prepared, I'll ask that they submit those for the record. And now I'd like to take a moment and explain the timing lights to our witnesses. You each have 5 minutes to deliver your testimony. The light will start out as green. When you have 1 minute remaining, the light will turn yellow, and finally, it will turn red at the end of your 5 minutes. Would ask that you adhere to those time limits if at all possible. Our first witness is Alan Portella. Mr. Portella is Chief Executive Officer for Airstrip Technologies, which is based in San Antonio, Texas. He has more than 25 years of experience in bringing groundbreaking technology solutions to market. Airstrip's app allows physicians to securely access real-time clinical patient data at any time, anywhere, expediting decision-making. Airstrip was the first app approved by the FDA for the App Store. Welcome. You have 5 minutes to present your testimony. We look forward to your demonstration.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's an honor to be part of this committee at such an exciting time in healthcare. This is probably the biggest transformation ever. And if you look at the model today, it's changing from hospital-centric to patient-centric. We are looking really at an approach on chronic disease management. Unfortunately, 160 million Americans suffer at least one chronic disease. And what we have to do is to be able to figure out a way to manage those patients with the challenges at hand. The challenge today is that we have a shortage of caregivers, physicians, specialists, and we have the patient population that is increasing by the millions under the Affordable Care Act. So now physicians are becoming more and more mobile professionals. The data has to be delivered to them via mobile devices, data that is clinically relevant, so they can make informed decisions rather than them going to desktop computers to be able to get that data. So definitely the model is changing. Now we have to make sure that mobility becomes a key element to support the new model. Airstrip core products are a medical device, a mobility solutions, and they are patent protected, FDA cleared, and recently we received the DoD DIACAP certification for security. So these milestones were never viewed as barriers to entry for us. They are considered what make us unique and also what allows us to impact a number of lives. Today, 1 out of every 5 babies born in the U.S. are covered or are monitored by doctors that are looking at these babies as before they're born using Airstrip solutions. And we have documented cases that moms that deliver from high-risk pregnancies that deliver babies, those babies would have not been alive today if it wasn't because of diagnostic quality remote monitoring. We also cover a number of patients with heart disease, and I'm going to use that for our demonstration. If we, as a use case, it takes about 90 minutes for a patient with a heart attack with a full blockage to go from the emergency department into the cath lab so they can clear that artery with the right procedure. The reason it takes 90 minutes is because usually the cardiologists, the specialists are on call and they're not in the emergency department at all times. So they are the ones that need to make that diagnosis to approve the procedure. What we do with our product is that now physicians, the cardiologists, can actually access that data immediately when the patient is in the ambulance, not when they come to the emergency department. So now they can make a decision before the patient comes in, and they can have the care coordination team ready to take care of that patient. So we are actually reducing the time to intervention to more than half, to 30 minutes in some cases. There is actually a firefighter in New York that was able to go back to work after a full blockage after 3 weeks, and he was on national TV. So the reality is that we are producing better heart muscle as a result of time to intervention, but also better quality of life. Also, physicians are able to monitor patients as they go home, and also in the intensive care units. You can look at a patient and look at all their charted data, documented data by the nurses, the rates, the pressures, the respiration rates, laboratory results, medications administered. But also, you can look at their alerts, and you can also look at the patient, the live patient monitoring data. This is something that can be done remotely, and it's actually diagnostic quality. We are actually taking now this to home monitoring for cardiac patients, patients in underserved communities, rural healthcare. Now, you are going to be able to monitor that remotely. We're also taking this to chronic diseases as diabetes, COPD, and others. So today, we're not representing the large companies, but we're representing the hundreds of thousands of patients that are alive because of those doctors and nurses that were able to take care of those patients using our products. The partnership with the federal government for us really is what drove our innovation process. And the FDA made us relevant. The DoD made our patient data secure. So what we are, and together we improve the quality of care. What we really want to urge as part of this committee is for the FDA to provide guidance on the regulation on diagnostic quality medical device mobility. So now, also there is more security that is attached to this, because lack of guidance is encouraging medical device manufacturers to offer inferior solutions and give those to the customers without the proper clearance, which is hurting us as a small business, but it's also hurting you and I as patients. So the other consequence of being the first one and taking the lead in the industry is that we are part of the only companies that are paying the medical device tax that is introduced as part of the Affordable Care Act, when those companies are not paying for that tax on the mobile device application. So thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, and I'm sure we'll have some questions at the end of this. Our next witness is Keith Brophy, who's Chief Executive Officer for IdeoMed in Grand Rapids, Michigan. Mr. Brophy was Western Michigan's Entrepreneur of the Year in 2004 and received his bachelor's degree in computer science from the University of Michigan. IdeoMed's app, aBreeze, is designed to improve health outcomes and lower costs by motivating patients with chronic conditions to adhere to medication schedules. Welcome. You have 5 minutes to present your testimony and demonstrate your app.
Chairman Collins, Ranking Member Hahn, and members of the subcommittee, I'm Keith Brophy, CEO of IdeoMed, and I appreciate the opportunity to address you today. IdeoMed is a Michigan-based company launched by Spectrum Health with a national focus on the staggering cost of chronic disease. I'm also here today as a member of ACT, a trade association that assists mobile development companies in understanding and aligning with regulations to build effective solutions. Chronic conditions such as asthma, heart failure, and diabetes are the untamed frontier of healthcare, with over $1 trillion a year impact to our U.S. economy. Much of this cost could be prevented if individuals effectively manage their health on a daily basis. And this is where aBreeze and IdeoMed step in. We engage patients in assisted self-management through mobile technology and human behavior science. We call our platform aBreeze because our goal is to make the managing of one's health a breeze. aBreeze represents a new breed of health application. It does not dispense medical advice. Rather, it extends the reach of the clinician and inspires the patient to take control of their own health. This is a winning combination. We sell this platform directly to insurers who bear the cost of chronic disease, such as managed Medicaid providers. They, in turn, deploy aBreeze to the subsets of their populations with the most severe chronic conditions. As we will now demonstrate on the screen, aBreeze engages. On our mobile device, You can see the version of a breeze which Alex, a hypothetical patient with severe asthma, would use. A breeze is a friend on Alex's shoulder that provides medication reminders. An alert pops up at appropriate times and leads Alex to quickly record his dose. For example, here he records his dose of Advair. If he misses a dose, his mother and insurance case manager receive alerts. If he records it, they immediately see the results, whether they are across town or across the country. Alex can also record symptoms and custom triggers that fit his life. For example, his neighbor's long-haired cat, Mr. McFluffy, which can induce asthma attacks. This personalized tracking allows Alex to see how asthma maps to his world. As Alex successfully completes each day's medication, he is awarded with digital creatures. These creatures, called breezlings, are badge-based incentives the child earns over time. Alex can also earn tailored family incentives, such as a visit to the park. These features are based on motivational psychology and gamification science. Their use deepens the positive engagement Alex has with his daily management. Alex is not alone on this journey. On the Abreeze website, his care team can monitor Alex's daily interactions, as well as establish medication schedules, set incentives, and view trends. From Alex's perspective, Abreeze provides control and confidence regarding his asthma. To his care team, it provides connected peace of mind. Early on in the development of the platform that you have just seen, there were skeptics who questioned the potential of mobile engagement. We heard misgivings about the ability to engage children on a sustained basis, and that the need for wireless connectivity would be too restricting. We have now carried out many successful deployments that suggest those concerns were unfounded. Here you can see that in each of these small population trials, emergency room visits noticeably declined. We have also expanded our aim. Abreeze Heart has been in use by congestive heart failure patients, average age 77, for over 6 months, with a sustained daily engagement rate of over 80%. Engagement rates across our Medicaid asthma initiatives have similar affirming numbers. We continue to expand our portfolio to other conditions, including diabetes, cancer journeys, and more. We started just 3 years ago with a visionary seed funder in Spectrum Health and a determination to make a difference. We have blossomed from startup with a couple team members and no office to a booming business with 32 expert team members with diverse skill sets and a national product line. Our original product was a sleeve device that slid onto an asthma inhaler to provide medication reminders. It became clear that the mobile technology landscape was rapidly offering alternative approaches. We found the cost to achieve FDA device approval and bring the sleeve to market would be prohibitive. So we shifted strategy, leveraged the insights we had gained, and mobile-based Abreeze was born. We are vigilant about building solutions that are of the highest caliber for our users and that safeguard their data. Our success has been shaped by our ability to turn assumptions upside down and, ultimately, to empower individuals to steward their health with the connectedness of a broader team. We look to a future of touching lives and peer ahead to anticipate the still emerging FDA mobile health guidelines. IdealMed encourages and welcomes clear, timely, and right-sized governance. These are historic times of change in American healthcare. We are proud to be an engine of responsible transformation to a new era of mobile patient engagement. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brophy. At this time, I'd like to yield to Ranking Member Hahn for her introduction of our next witness.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It is my pleasure to introduce Dr. Chris Burrow. Dr. Burrow is the Executive Vice President for Medical Affairs at Humetrix. Is that right? Did I pronounce that right? Humetrix, a small, women-owned business in Del Mar, California. Before joining Humetrix, Dr. Burrow was an executive and founder of 2 California startup biotechnological companies. He is here today on behalf of the App Developers Alliance, an industry association dedicated to meeting the needs of developers as creators, innovators, and entrepreneurs. Welcome, Dr. Burrow.
Thank you. Chairman Collins, Ranking Member Hahn, and distinguished subcommittee members, thank you for the opportunity to appear before you today. It's an honor and a pleasure. I appreciate it. My name is Chris Burrow, as you've just heard, and I'm EVP Medical Affairs at Humetrix. And as you also heard, a small woman-owned business in Del Mar, California, We are a member of the App Developers Alliance, and we appear today on their behalf. Umetrics was founded in 1998. It's been a pioneer in the development of mobile technology. Over the last 15 years, we've developed numerous mobile applications that enable consumers to engage the world around them in new and innovative ways. Despite significant progress in electronic health record adoption in the last few years, essential health information is still not readily accessible by patients in today's provider-centric healthcare system. By enabling patients to access their own health information at the point of care with an easy-to-use mobile application, Umetrics' iBlueButton solution, our app, is free of many of the challenges encountered by the current system-to-system health information exchange initiatives in the nation. Our technology, iBlueButton, is based on the federal Blue Button Initiative. I have the icon right here on my lapel, Blue Button. The idea is very simple. Give patients access to their own health information using an easy-to-identify symbol that could be adopted and used by any organization holding valuable patient data, a blue button. Umetrics recognized the transformative potential of Blue Button data early on and built on these federal efforts by creating the iBlueButton app, both for iOS devices and Android devices, to provide patients and caregivers with easy, reliable, and secure access to their health record as maintained by both public and private payers. For Medicare, our application transforms the beneficiary-level claims data currently produced by the CMS Blue Button record into a user-friendly longitudinal health record that can be accessed on a mobile device and exchanged by patients and providers at the point of care. This comprehensive health record can be viewed directly on a smartphone or tablet and contains a patient's key health information, such as problems, medication list, as well as a detailed history of all the patient's health care encounters, including inpatient admissions, outpatient visits, imaging services, labs, and procedures. I'll now briefly demo our technology. So on the screen is my iPad, and here I'm playing the role of a patient first. So I'm going to launch the Blue Button app. And the first thing I have to do is I have to put in my password, because this is a password-protected app. So that no one else, if I lose my phone, no one else can get into this. And the data is held at high-level encryption on the device. In order to download a Medicare record, the only thing a Medicare patient has to do is go to mymedicare.gov and fill out a brief questionnaire designed by Medicare to get a username and password. Once they have acquired that username and password, they simply enter the username and password here into the app, they save it, and now they're ready to download their record. All they have to do to download their record is hit that download button, and here's the record. The record is laid out beautifully. We have diagnoses showing all the conditions that the patient has. For any one of those, the patient can do a quick lookup of what that partly Latin term may mean. It's not so easy, and if you are not completely conversant in English, it's even harder. You can also see all of your medications, not just the medication from the doctor you saw today, but all the medications that have been paid for under Part D. So that's quite, we think, transformative. And here they all are. For any medicine, you can do an easy lookup of drug information. That will give you basic information that comes from the National Library of Medicine, telling you how you should take that drug, what you should watch out for. If you have any side effects, you may not know what they might be, and here you can check them. If you see one, you can enter yes. And so basically, now you've got your whole medical record at under your fingertips, wherever you want it. When you see your physician, I don't have time to show everything, but we have a companion app. You can push the record over to the physician's device. We generate a novel optical QR code, and the physician can now scan your smartphone, which is displaying a QR code, and the record is now shown on the physician's device. All the physician needs is an iPad and our technology from either the Play Store or iTunes. And these alerts that the patient has entered will now be shown as little exclamation points, saying whether the patient is or is not taking that medication and whether they do or do not have that condition. Well, my time is up. I've gone pretty fast. I'm delighted again to have been here, and I want to thank everyone for that. Our one ask is we're trying to get the word out. Patient education is key. Provider education is key. We're working with private and public stakeholders to do just that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Burrow. Our next witness is Sabrina Casucci. Ms. Casucci is a doctoral candidate in industrial and systems engineering at the University at Buffalo, in Buffalo, New York. She holds a bachelor's degree in materials science and engineering from Purdue and a master's degree in business administration from the University at Buffalo. Ms. Casucci and her colleagues, who we're happy to say are joining her today, welcome, received second prize in General Electric's Hospital Quest competition for their app, which introduces patient and caregiver choice into the discharge process and supports timely communication between the hospital and community care teams, so hospital readmissions are reduced, saving society money. Welcome. You have 5 minutes to present your testimony and demonstrate your app.
Great. Chairman Collins and distinguished members of the subcommittee, thank you again for the invitation to participate in today's hearing. I'm honored to represent a talented team of fellow graduate students from the University of Buffalo Department of Industrial and Systems Engineering. I want to briefly discuss how our group of young entrepreneurs are translating our individual healthcare and technology-related research into a mobile solution that will make hospital discharge planning a more effective and efficient process. So discharge planning is a critical step in acute patient care. Yet the inherent complexities of existing processes are often result in undesirable outcomes for both the patient and the healthcare system. So annually, nearly 1 in 5 Medicare patients are readmitted to a hospital within 30 days of their initial discharge, with a cost of more than $17 billion. But despite recent efforts to make improvements in these areas, readmission rates have remained relatively constant. So the recent GE Health Quest competition provided the catalyst for our group to develop a better solution for discharge planning, and we believe Discharge Roadmap will fundamentally redefine the process. Solutions like ours can fundamentally or make a significant impact on healthcare in the U.S. Mobile solutions can connect fragmented care processes and improve continuity of care, both contributors to improved patient outcomes and reduced costs of care. However, as a startup group in the early stages of development, there is a long and difficult road ahead. In addition to difficulties in obtaining funding and support for our product, we must confront complex technical issues such as interoperability. Improving interoperability standards will ensure that healthcare providers can choose a solution that best fits the needs of their patients and not just the needs of their existing health information technology systems. Through our app, we seek to make a meaningful contribution to reducing readmission rates by facilitating communication among patients, their families or informal caregivers, and hospital-based clinicians, and by improving continuity of care with community-based care providers. So I'm going to take the next few minutes to give a brief overview of our app and a few of the unique features that it provides. So this is best demonstrated with an example of John, an 80-year-old patient hospitalized for congestive heart failure. And despite her busy schedule, John's daughter, Jane, is the only informal caregiver available to help John in his recovery. Discharge Roadmap is designed to facilitate the discharge planning process, allowing it to begin much earlier in John's hospital stay. Using our app, John, Jane, and John's doctors can be assured that all care needs and constraints are adequately considered in the process. So today, bringing together these stakeholders to develop a discharge plan is a difficult undertaking. Using a systematic approach, we can connect this team and, using the tools provided by Discharge Roadmap, improve their communication and coordination. So these customized tools can be categorized into 3 main functionalities: education, assessments, and referrals. So John would first experience our app, the educational component of our app. In this section, he can review several short modules explaining his diagnosis and care management. The same material then is available to Jane so that she can also learn the best ways to assist her father in improving his care. As John completes progress through this area, the results of his short teach-back quizzes are provided to both him and his doctor. So after learning about his diagnosis and how to manage his care, John and Jane can both independently assess what his abilities are to manage his care post-hospitalization, and as well as their abilities to meet those needs. So John's doctor will also complete their own assignments and then is presented a prioritized summary of the results of all 3 of these assessments, allowing her to focus discharge planning discussions on areas where there is some discrepancy or inconsistency in answers. And so once John's doctor then determines his post-discharge care needs, such as home care, John can learn about these services. In addition, he's provided an evidence-based prediction of what his outcomes would be if he were to follow through with those recommendations. So the key piece then after that is figuring out who is going to provide this service. So John and Jane can also review the local service providers and indicate their preferences for who they would prefer the referrals to go. So and then as Jane certainly is the one who would be taking her father to these appointments, it's important to know what her schedule and constraints are so that she can also then communicate her availability through our app to the appointment schedulers. And finally, our referral feature provides continuity of care with community-based care providers by allowing John's doctor to quickly assemble and transmit detailed referrals to those community-based care providers. So combined, we believe our education, assessment, and referral components are really redesigning the discharge planning process, and we are honored to have shared them with you today. Thank you.
Thank you, one and all. I think, as we move forward with technology, and I think we are going to be relying more and more on entrepreneurs to come up with solutions for a variety of reasons. In some cases, it's to make money. In other cases, it's to pursue your continued education. But in each of your cases, what you've given us is a great look at the marriage of entrepreneurs and technology and where we might go, and I'd say really where we are going. All of us know healthcare costs are a #1 concern. They're #1 concern to individuals. Can they afford it, whether it's the cost of their drugs or insurance? For corporations, they're facing those issues now as we move forward into a new world. And anything we can do to reduce the overall cost. And I think the solution is patients starting to take control of their own lives. In the past, the old model was you had insurance, you went to the doctor, you didn't know exactly what it cost because someone else paid it, and you went home. Well, today, that's a very different model. And I think what you're showing is the next stage of patients taking control. But as we got an aging population, certainly the baby boomers, of which I'm one, retiring 10,000 of us a day, in the story you're sharing of an 80-year-old man with his daughter helping out. Ms. Hahn wanted to know where the son was. But always the daughter. That is the world we live in. Our parents are living longer because of advances, but in many cases they are on some kind of chronic medication and or we're always worried about admissions to hospitals. So you've made a great stride. So my first question really, because we don't have all the regulations out, and I know with iBlue Button what you've done will maybe, in fact, why don't we start with Mr. Burrow on the HIPAA issue, the privacy issue. You mentioned if you lose your cell phone, someone's not going to be able to get in and get that information. And I know we're all concerned about privacy and who has access to our medical information. So maybe you could explain what you're doing, and then I'm curious to hear whether that's an issue for the other 3 witnesses.
Thank you, Chairman Collins, for that question. It's a very important question. So our view and the way we've designed these apps is that you, the patient, should be able to access your own records. You acquire the credentials to do so from the data holder. The example I gave is Medicare. So you go to the Medicare website and you comply with the requirements of that data holder. So once you've done that, as we frequently see in banking and other aspects of our lives, you acquire a username and password. That is securely stored in the iBlue Button app. It is encrypted, and the download takes place in a secure fashion, and the record, once on your phone, is in fact encrypted and stored there, so that if you lose your phone, the only data that could be acquired maliciously would be a file of encrypted ones and zeros, which would be I hesitate to say impossible, but virtually impossible to break. So your data is secure, and losing a phone would not be a problem. No one would have the password to get into your app, and no one would be able to see your data.
Thank you. Mr. Portella?
Well, as I mentioned before, we just received the certification for DoD. It's called DIACAP certification for security. And it is our position as we're going through that process with the Department of Defense. We clearly recognize the risks for cyber attacks out there that are way beyond what the common private citizen will see. Basically, the way the DoD handles the security through the DIACAP certification is that they have a number of engineers that are looking for hackers on a regular basis, and every time they find hackers trying to break in, they are automatically publishing those vulnerabilities to all the vendors that are DIACAP certified. So what we need to do as vendors is immediately identify how we're going to mitigate those vulnerabilities. And in some cases, they are category 1s, which they consider these are very risky. But every month, they're identifying new vulnerabilities that could break the patient data. So what happens is that if at some point we start getting closer and closer to the medical devices and eventually managing those devices remotely, if we are vulnerable to hackers, we're going to have a lot of problems. HIPAA today and the FCC with the open SSL standard, they primarily direct the security to the application level, but they don't do that on the operating system level so much. The DoD requirement, it gives you audit trails on everything that happens also on the operating system, preventing hackers from coming in. So what I recommend is that we take a look at what the DoD is doing and bring in some of that certification process into the private sector.
Thank you. Now, Mr. Brophy, your example was a young man whose family's watching. I'm assuming too that would apply not just to kids, if I'm correct, but also, again, how does HIPAA and the privacy and how does your app manage that, and is that a worry for you?
The privacy and protection of data is something we take very seriously in designing the app, and we have approaches similar to those shared with encryption at the technology level, and also above and beyond that, the people process that's built into the application is an important element. For example, our data is self-reported data reported by the patient, but the model supports a care team that can remotely monitor their data. That access is not provided unless the patient or their guardian specifically consents to sharing their data in that fashion. So we build the people approval and the technology protection in 2 layers.
Thank you. Ms. Casucci, how does your app handle the privacy issues?
Sure. Well, we're still in the development process of our app, so we have no official solution to that yet, but that's certainly one of the concerns from that startup perspective. So we know that there are various standards that we do need to adhere to, and figuring out how to navigate the standard system and how to determine the proper solution for our app is that first big hurdle. So it's certainly one of those barriers that we need to overcome and understand better.
Well, we'll come back for some other questions, but at this point I'll yield to Ranking Member Hahn for her questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Casucci, you touched on interoperability.
Yes.
And when I'm listening to everybody's presentation, which were all extremely interesting and really very exciting, and certainly where we need to be in terms of quality health care. Obviously, the doctor who would be treating the patient for a kidney problem would have to be able to talk to the cardiologist who's treating the heart problem, and I would ask that to all the witnesses. Is this a problem, interoperability, and what do we need to do in Congress to encourage the interoperability of these applications and healthcare data systems overall?
Sure. So really what we view on this is that integration of our system is really key. So we as a third-party vendor need to talk with everybody, in that there are several different types of standards that people are discussing currently, but no unified or agreed upon standard as to how these different technologies can communicate with each other. But we don't see data as that competitive advantage. We see the communication piece and enabling that. So if we can do that, then we can eliminate all these needs for redundant testing and really reduce the cost of care by enabling test results from one facility or one system to be communicated across to another. So really what we're looking for is just some guidance as to what is the best approach to do all of this. Do we need to create customized solutions for each different software vendor that's out there, or can there be more of a unified agreement that we can all work towards and then communicate via that?
Thank you. Mr. Portella.
Thank you. And I do have about 20 years experience in this area. And yes, interoperability is a huge problem. And what happens is we're not lacking the standards. The standards need to be enforced. And what happens also, vendors have the tendency to protect the data, to preserve some of the advantages that they have. And I'm talking primarily about the large vendors. So you have to look at front-end integration and back-end integration. The front end is more around the episode of care, and the back end is really maintaining a longitudinal record. The back end is going to take 10 years until really the vendors start supporting the standards that the government has to enforce that are not enforced today. But at least what we're trying to do on the mobile side with mobile technology is dealing with the episode of care. All of us really trying to capture the data from all these systems to be able to display that episode of care so physicians can look at electronic medical record data, medical device data, images, video conferencing for telehealth, and others. So unfortunately, the only standard that exists that most of the vendors support is something that is called the Continuity of Care Document, CCD, that is a very small subset of the data that you can get from a patient visit. The real data, you have to get it from interfacing to each of those vendors, and there are different ways of doing that, but definitely there is one standard that is called HL7 standard that at least all of us are trying to comply with that, and it gives you the ability to take data and receive that data, but right back into those systems. But vendors need to be forced to collaborate. We are in a new world.
Any other witnesses?
I would agree with Mr. Portella. The standards such as HL7 are out there, and the mobile application vendors build solutions that often can be integrated if the other side of the equation has the bridges for that integration. In the case of IdealMed with a Breeze, we build it to be what I would describe as a flexible building block. It can plug into other systems, and it can plug into various scenarios. As we look at the healthcare landscape, in the case, for example, of a congestive heart failure patient, when they're discharged from the hospital, their care team could be a varied cast of characters, from an insurance company case manager to a cardiologist to a heart education nurse to a visiting home health nurse to family members. So there's not only multiple players, but multiple data systems that could potentially share the data. I think companies such as IdealMed build the flexible pieces, then it's a matter of finding out where in the ecosystem they can integrate.
Thank you for that question. So our national strategy is built on three different approaches. One, system-to-system exchange between doctors or EMR systems, and you've heard a little bit about that, so I won't comment. The patient-consumer-mediated exchange model that we embody is this other idea, the new idea, that if everyone has access to a summary medical record that they can carry, if you will, on their mobile device, that will help solve the interoperability problem out there. Umetrics has been part of the Blue Button Initiative. We have come together both on the private and government side to define new Blue Button Plus standards, which we believe will be important going forward to mediate this patient model where you have on your phone your record. After all, for your financial information, you have an ATM card, and you get your data easily. So our vision is that every citizen should have the ability to get their data and have it with them.
Thank you. Again, I just think that's something we ought to look at as we move forward. The technology exists, but interoperability is so key. I look at that in so many areas. Even law enforcement still is struggling with interoperability in the event of a major disaster, we still have a lot of different agencies out there that can't talk to each other. So it's something I think we need to look at. I've got more, but I'll save them for the next round.
Very good. Thank you. At this point in time, we'd like to recognize the gentleman from Missouri, Mr. Lukemeyer, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I guess this means I've got to put my rotary phone away, huh? Thank you all of you for being here today. I know last week I was very disappointed and actually was very frustrated by the lack of information and the testimony of the witnesses. Today, it's very encouraging to see witnesses that are absolutely on the cutting edge and have the answers. And I admire what you're doing, and I, quite frankly, hope you keep it up, because obviously it's going to make this a better world for all of us with what you're doing. So thank you. Very quickly, what regulations are in place that you have to deal with every day with regards to the barriers that are put in front of you that you have to overcome, that we could have an impact on to help make your job of developing these things easier or running your businesses better? What do you see as some problems? And just go down the line. Mr. Portella.
So I can start. And again, I think I'm just one of those rare vendors that are really here to propose regulation. And when it comes to diagnostic quality, when it comes to saving lives, when it comes to moving into a model outside of the four walls of the hospital, we want more regulation from the FDA on diagnostic quality and security. So the reality is that we deal on a day-to-day basis with the FDA as we submit new products and enhancements to the existing products, but we feel that process is improving significantly. What we want to make sure is that right now we are proactively complying with requirements that are not out there yet. We would like the FDA to really recognize what we are trying to do as a leader in the industry and the impact that we're bringing to patient safety, and to be able to go across the board and really make the regulations so everybody has to comply with the same regulation.
Very good. You guys are on cutting edge here, so a lot of times the rules aren't there to be able to rein in or to allow what you're doing to be done in the most effective and cost-efficient way. Mr. Brophy.
We understand and align with regulations such as HIPAA and protection of privacy. Our key regulation that's approaching that will impact us is the FDA mobile health guidelines. And we look forward to those governances and the clarity that it will provide. That the last couple of years, as we have designed out the system, we've anticipated and speculated what the eventual mobile health guidelines may be. So we have tried to be proactive and build a solution that will align well with the FDA guidelines, but that is with anticipation and expectation of what they might be. So we welcome those guidelines when they roll out.
Dr. Burrow, your group?
Right. So I think the regulations that might affect us the most are HIPAA, and we've designed our solution to be fully compliant, both with the encryption on the device and in the technology I did not get to show, the encryption with a one-time key when you push the record to your doctor. Since Umetrics does not store any data, in fact, Umetrics has no way of touching your data. You have your phone, you download your data, you own the data. Umetrics isn't a part of that. We don't store your data. So that's the one that we're thinking most about. As a member of the App Developers Alliance, of course, we support the approach that will be flexible and will ensure patient safety. And I echo some of the comments of my colleagues here. For us, right now, I'm not a regulatory expert, but I don't have anything additional to add to my colleagues on those other subjects. Thanks.
Ms. Casucci?
Yeah, no, I will just agree certainly and support everything that's been said so far. From the very early stages of this, I will say it's certainly navigating that regulatory system and understanding really what your options are and how you need to comply with some of those. So that's really the point that we're at this point, is how to best implement the right levels of security to comply with those regulations.
Very good. I just got 30 seconds left here, so quickly. I think measuring the success of what you do is going to be very important. You know, the difference you're making in the lives of the people. Is there a measurement that you've been able to establish so far, a way that you've tried to measure this, both in success of saving lives or better lives lived, or the cost that you've been able to save monies with what you're doing, Mr. Portella?
Yes. Sorry. So definitely in today's economy, no vendor can actually bring their systems to the market without a clear ROI organizational, clinical, and financial. So everything that we do, we look at the value prop. We do a SaaS model, so we have to demonstrate the value at every step of the way, otherwise the customers will go away. And what we're doing, if we just take that cardiac patient that I was explaining before, you reduce the time to intervention, better quality of life, you reduce false activation of cath labs when patients are coming in and they activate the cath lab that they don't need to, $7,500, that's what you save every time that you activate the cath lab and it's not necessary. Then we reduce the length of stay in the ICU because better quality of your heart, muscle, less time in the ICU. And then also, that is about 0.85 days length of stay reduction. And then also, we're looking at the readmission, the reduction of readmissions for cardiac patients that under Affordable Care Act, 2 out of the 3 conditions that are going to be penalized for 30-day readmission are cardiac conditions. And we're also seeing a decrease of 25% on readmissions, which is a significant problem in the U.S. And you can continue in each of the service lines and see we have for each service lines on obstetrics, patient monitoring, what is the benefit that we bring to the table.
My time is up. I have to ask for the indulgence of the chair if you want to continue with this.
No problem. We'd like to hear the rest of the witness.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Brophy, it's interesting to hear that you have to have the cost-benefit analysis of each one of these apps brought to the table in order to be able to fully develop it. Is that what you've experienced as well, Mr. Brophy?
We have experienced that, and as I shared in the testimony, we faced initially skepticism about the power of mobile health apps to engage. So we've laid out a very careful stepping stone journey to progressively build proof points and more proof points. You know, we've started with health outcome measures. You know, one of the most significant that you saw on the chart, the reduction in ER visits, but other health outcome measures as well. All outcomes have been affirming and positive. Is the next step, we are collecting cost data, working with multiple insurance companies so we can have the hard cost data that maps to the health outcomes. And we likewise continue to scale up in the scope and size of our clinical trials so they'll have more and more relevance. So we look at a combination of improved health and improved cost backed by black and white data.
Okay, I'd like to stop right there. Just can you give me, for instance, on one of your apps, did you have some data that showed how many lives it would save, or the cost, or the amount of money saved by lessening the amount of time in the hospital or in recuperative care?
Right. We have hard data on areas like the reduction in ER visits for for select measured populations.
Can you give me one?
Yes, we had a study of Medicaid asthma patients, 26 individuals that had 12 collective ER visits prior to the 6 months of the study. And during the 6 months of our study, that was reduced to 0 ER visits. So,
really?
So we can project that to rather staggering cost savings in the world of clinicians and insurers. There's a high bar of diligence for proving out such claims, but the early health outcomes would suggest that the cost savings will be very significant.
Burrow?
We are early on and haven't collected data that would directly answer your question. However, I would say that many studies have shown that having a complete comprehensive list of medications that have been prescribed to the patient when they present at the point of care is crucial in preventing the adverse drug reactions that were cited by Ranking Member Hahn, namely that as many as 7,000 of the 98,000 preventable deaths per year are from adverse drug reactions. So we're intrigued by going beyond that obvious point to collect data, but have not yet done so.
Appreciate your testimony, and Ms. Casucci, I guess you guys are still in the development stage,
Sure.
right? Okay.
We are.
Have you got some data that shows what you can anticipate saving?
Our more anecdotal evidence at this point.
Okay.
So there certainly will be we anticipate a reduction in readmission rates, so there's going to be some cost savings from that. But we've been looking more at the kind of more of the intangible costs at this point. So the benefit to having that better understanding of the care process on both the patient's behalf and their caregiver. So having this more complete understanding and comprehension of what those care needs are is certainly going to have a lot of intangible costs to the healthcare system in a more longer-term perspective.
Very good. I appreciate the Chair's indulgence. It was very, very informative. Thank you.
Thank you. I've just got kind of a general question as we're going through this, and that's your financial model. 3 out of the 4 of you are in business. We talk about ROI, and I think it's just always intriguing as entrepreneurs come forward, ultimately to say, you know, how do you make money on what it is you're doing? I thought it was an interesting comment Mr. Portella made that as he's developing his app, he's already subject to the medical device tax of Obamacare because it's not based on profits, it's based on revenue. But that's a slightly different topic. But I'm just curious because I'm already hearing, you know, one of you is focused on selling to an insurance company. Some of you may be focused on selling to consumers. There may be different ways to get to market. And part of an entrepreneur's job is, after you've invented this great app, how do you get it out there? How do you get customers? And so just real briefly, be curious to hear the different financial models, to the extent you'd like to share that.
Yes, of course. And first, I want to mention that if we look at what happened over the last few years at Airstrip, we had a significant growth in the last 3 years, but definitely we're starting to see a significant impact from the beginning of the Affordable Care Act, because definitely I think the model eventually could work because you are reducing the reimbursement and putting more money on uninsured patients that eventually will come back into the system and increase admissions to the system. But I think that starting in April, sequestration created a huge, huge problem. If you just look at, in New York, North Shore Medical Center, from 20,000 patients, cancer patients, they are rejecting 16,000 of those patients because they cannot afford to keep those patients on the system. So we're starting to see throughout all healthcare organizations the fact that they're starting to look at their operating expenses. They were looking more at how to manage Affordable Care Act as it came in, but nobody was ready for sequestration. So what happens is we are partners to those healthcare organizations. We are here because we have the passion to make an impact to the quality of care. We started with models always as a SaaS model, subscription as a service, partnering with them and going at risk. So what we're doing right now is evaluating our prices and make sure that we clearly measure the benefit that we bring to them. So at no point they're losing any money. So that's our approach.
Thank you. Mr. Brophy?
We do sell to insurance companies, and specifically we sell population licenses. So we provide licenses that cover a broad swath of an insurer's population. They focus a breeze on the subset that has the most severe conditions. We work together to roll it out to those populations. And the savings that the insurer realizes is the ER visits are reduced, go directly to the insurance company's bottom line. So we're a return on investment sale proposition for the insurers. By purchasing the licenses for their population and employing, they reduce costs significantly. We do sell as well to health systems, accountable care organizations, also to hospital systems that may be focusing on reducing Medicare readmissions or aligning with meaningful use guidelines. So we have a number of potential sales candidates within the health ecosystem, but insurance companies, particularly the managed Medicaid insurers, realize the most direct cost benefit from the purchase.
Thank you, Mr. Burrow.
Right. So our apps are currently available on the iTunes Store and the Play Store, and individuals can use our apps. 37 million Medicare patients can go acquire these apps. The app is free to download. We have a nominal charge for when they use the app to download and process the Medicare record, which is a few dollars for 5 records or a few dollars more for 25 records. We give a credit every time a patient pushes that record to a doctor and shares that record with their doctor. They get credited back. So if they download the app and use it frequently to share, the cost is really nominal. We believe that Medicare, CMS, should consider policies that allow reimbursement for this type of technology. And we would, of course, be happy to discuss that with CMS. We think that having every Medicare beneficiary have access to their medication list, their problem list, their past procedures, and all their doctors is a self-evident good. So we would be happy to discuss that with CMS further.
Now, if someone was going to download your app, what's it called?
Blue button. Thank you for asking. Thank you for asking. Getting the word out is important.
That's the business side of me. Glad to
Thank
do that.
you.
Ms. Casucci, I know you're still in the development, but
Right.
and we may have chatted earlier. Have you thought of the financial piece yet?
We are. That's one of the big questions that we're tackling at the moment. So our goal certainly is to have the most people being able to use our app to obviously get the most benefit from it. So there are several options about how to best position our product to be able to do that. So thank the panel here for giving us some interesting insight into how their models are and how they're working. So.
Thank you. I see we're joined by Mr. Kaufman from Colorado. We'd certainly welcome any questions you may have for this very dynamic and appropriate panel in this technological age.
Well, thank you all for testifying before Congress today. I just had a Veterans Committee hearing scheduled at the very same time, so I left that early to come over here in interest for what you're doing. And I wonder if you could just, all of you, say what is the end state in terms of, and I think in terms of the questions that we all have, surrounding healthcare, quality, access, and cost, and how what you do influences those same those 3 critical areas that are so important to the American people. Mr. Portella.
Okay. So, of course, you're mentioning quality, access, and cost. I think that on our testimony, we are addressing those 3 areas. Just so you know, we are a big proponent of, as I mentioned before, of the FDA regulating medical device mobility, because as we're moving, as I said before, into a patient-centric model outside of the 4 walls of the hospital, as we have fewer physicians taking care of more patients today, it is very important that the data that they get is really diagnostic quality and that they get that on a real-time basis. And the real-time basis is also very important. So that is as it relates to quality. I think that the area of cost also, it's very important. I was mentioning before that we are partnering with a number of healthcare organizations like Dignity Healthcare, Ardent Healthcare, HCA, that are helping us to really figure out what is the right model moving forward with all the different hits that they're getting. We were talking about sequestration and the impact that brings into many of these healthcare organizations. So as far as cost, we are putting the models in place with them. And in some cases, we're going on a risk-sharing basis to be able to work with them. As far as access, what we talked about is the challenge of interoperability, the fact that there are a number of standards for healthcare information exchange, but standards that are not enforced by the government and the vendors are not complying with. Even though there are standards, as we mentioned before, like HL7, there are certain areas of HL7 where the vendors get flexibility to put proprietary formats in that language, and for some reason, all the vendors decide to put 99% of their data there and 1% following the standard. So the federal government really needs to take a very hard look into this and force all of us to collaborate. We are not realizing that as we move into an outcomes-based reimbursement model, no longer fee-for-service, and as we're having the issue with shortage of caregivers and patients increasing, We are not going to be able to sustain this model without innovation and without vendors collaborating. We are all going to be responsible for this system to collapse if we don't open up.
Okay. Mr. Brophy?
Yes, our model is built with a desire to make a difference in the areas of quality, access, and cost. So I appreciate the question. The insurance company of today, the managed Medicaid fixed price provider, essentially, manages a population, including those with severe chronic conditions, and often does that through case managers. The case managers often reach out occasionally through telephone calls to try to connect with those patients. We work directly with those case managers across the nation, and they're incredible individuals. They care, they're expert, they can make a difference if they can just connect with, for example, the severe asthmatic. We, through our mobile application, give that case manager the opportunity to be present, in a sense, every day of that child's life with severe asthma, a connected way that is right there in the child's life, that rolls back to the case manager website. They can provide incentives and motivations and insight. So we increase the scale and the reach of the case manager. In turn, that provides access. This solution has been deployed from urban Detroit to rural Kentucky for populations that otherwise wouldn't have access to a daily stewardship of their condition. And in terms of the cost equation, we've targeted insurance companies because our belief is that as we lower the cost for insurers, that plays a significant role in lowering the cost of our nation's health care and lowering the cost of everybody's access.
Mr. Chairman, can I have unanimous consent to have one more minute?
Oh, absolutely. This is very interesting.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for the question, Congressman Kaufman. Given that you were just at the VA committee, I should mention that our app also gives every veteran the ability to download their blue button record from the My Healthy Vet website. What use case are we trying to solve? How are we trying to help? The veteran often gets care both at the VA and outside in the private community. By giving the veteran the ability to download their record from My Healthy Vet, which is output from Vista, when they see a physician out in the community, that physician now can see the record that our app is delivering, either on the patient's own smartphone, or our smartphone allows the patient to transfer that record with an optical code to the physician's iPad. So this is a key problem for the VA that currently fax is often the mode of communication. So we believe by offering this is an important way we can affect quality of care and cost for the Veterans Administration. And we're on the VA website as a Blue Button partner listed there. Veterans can go there and link to our app and download our app from iTunes or Play Store.
Please.
Great. So as you know, as industrial engineers, these are certainly concepts and ideas that are very near and dear to us. So our goal of designing this, what we set out to do, was really to try to reduce these costs of redundant or rework care, if you will. So what we try to do from that quality perspective is really improve the comprehension and the understanding of what that care process is and what the steps, and not only what the steps are you have to do, but why you should be doing them. And what we hope to do from that, through our assessment portion of it all, is to understand not only what that level of comprehension is, but what are the other constraints that are in this individual's or this family's situation that could prevent them from enacting this level of care that was prescribed. So if there are conditions, where there's the informal caregivers, working adult with their own family, there's clearly scheduling conflicts that need to be considered. So if we can take all of this into account in the beginning, then we can get this much better and more hopefully attainable care plan at that initial discharge, preventing all of these adverse events and effects coming in once those plans aren't really working out as they were intended.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Ms. Hahn, do you have some follow-up questions?
I do. And if you'll indulge me, I was just thinking, especially when I was listening to Mr. Portella talk about a cardiac patient, I was thinking about my own father, Kenneth Hahn, who was a county supervisor in the 60s in Los Angeles, and his doctor, his heart doctor, came to him one day and said, "Mr. Hahn, how would you like to save a life a day?" And my father's like, "Great, long as they're registered voters. No, my father said, yeah, how does it work? And he said, what we've discovered with a heart attack patient is this golden hour, right? If we can get to them in the first hour, we have a chance of saving their lives. So his idea was to train firefighters to be allowed to inject the drugs where they were instead of waiting till they were transported to the hospital. My dad thought it was a great idea, and at that point it took legislation because obviously a non-medical person was not allowed to administer these drugs. So it was passed by the California State Assembly and Legislature, and our governor at the time was Ronald Reagan. And Ronald Reagan was going to veto the legislation because at that point the AMA was against it. The nurses were against it because, again, you were taking something that was in their jurisdiction, you were giving it to these firemen. And my dad said, you know, let me talk to you, Governor Reagan, before you veto this. And so he flew up to Sacramento, and he said, let me give you one last opportunity to understand what this is about. My dad explained it. Governor Reagan said, let me ask you one question, Mr. Hahn. Would these ambulances, with these mobile, paramedic devices, would they be allowed to cross jurisdictional lines? Or would they just be assigned to certain cities? And my dad said, no, the point is they're at a base hospital. They go, who's ever closest is dispatched to the heart attack victim. And Ronald Reagan said, Kenny, I'm going to sign this. And my dad said, gee, what changed your mind? And he said, his own father in Beverly Hills had a heart attack, and his mom called an ambulance at the time in the 60s. The ambulance came from Los Angeles, and it stopped at the Beverly Hills property line and turned around and went back without relaying the information to anyone else, and his own father died in Beverly Hills. And so sitting here today, this is a great political satisfaction for someone like me who's new around here to think, gee, 45 years later on something that my dad actually championed, it was the paramedic program. And here we are 45 years later, and I think of course that was government. It's very exciting to hear small business people. What I think we are on the verge of something as dramatic and life-changing, life-saving as what my dad championed in the late 60s, which became our paramedic program. And I'll let you speak, but I was thinking, a latest Pew Research Center said 56% of U.S. adults own a smartphone. But that still leaves a lot of people in this country, about 45 million people, who won't be able to access your applications because they don't have a smartphone. And I know my district that I represent in Los Angeles is a poor minority district, and a lot of those folks can't afford a smartphone. How do we embrace this, help you to succeed, try to support you without, and how do we not leave behind 45 million Americans who, by the way, probably are the ones that have the medical conditions probably that would exactly need this kind of help with their health care in general, which would save money and be more efficient. How do we not leave them behind?
Well, so a lot of important points that you made. And what I would like to address first is that, of course, what a vision he had. And of course, what we need to look at is that many times we learn a lot from what happens on the military side, because we worry, of course, at what we're going to do in rural communities, but many of the things that we are doing in healthcare today and technology come from the military side. And we have to look at the model in the theater of operations. Prior to this, coming to Airstrip, I did 10 years of technology into the military health system. I deploy systems in every military base throughout the world. And if you look at the theater of operations, the battlefield, that is where a model like this will have a significant impact, because you have a medic that is not a physician, but they need to be able to take action right there. But if you can really provide the access so the doctor can make a decision, so if they have to inject something or if they have to perform a procedure, now they're going to have, using telehealth, they're going to be able to have those doctors working with those medics to be able to save those soldiers. So I think that that's an area we can start immediately. We have the right regulation for diagnostic quality. We have the right regulation for security for the DoD, and then really bring those models into the private sector supporting underserved communities. Now, the issue about people opposing an idea like that because they didn't want the firefighter to make that decision. Now, we go back to what we were saying in the battlefield. You can have now somebody remotely really helping on an emergency where something like that has to happen. As far as this group helping us on how we can have more adoption on cellular phones, on smartphones, well, we are the silent partner of the patient. We support the caregiver. So I am more about the physicians being able to get access to the data for all the patients anywhere at any time. So anything that can support caregivers to be able to do care coordination through mobile technology, I think it's the area where we need the most help. And reimbursement on the Medicare and Medicaid side is very important for that.
Yeah, thanks for that question. Yeah, it is true that not everybody has a smartphone, although that's changing rapidly. In communities that have disadvantaged individuals where the economics may not be there, we've been amazed at how many people, particularly of the younger generation, do in fact have smartphones. And as we've all learned, more people use smartphones now to access the internet than use the PC. This is extraordinary. We've just gone through an amazing inflection point there. So what we observe, and this is anecdotal, is that individuals who accompany their mother to the hospital and they have a smartphone with the record on the smartphone, this is an extraordinary thing for individuals who might not be able to answer those questions. What are your medicines? Who are your doctors? What are your problems? And even individuals who don't speak English, if they have our record in English right there and they can show it to the doctor, this is really, really something. And so we think that this kind of technology is very important for the communities that you're referencing.
We've seen the proliferation of the mobile technologies is exploding, even as it's already reached this inflection point. It continues to go up, up, up. And a solution like ours can not only run on a smartphone, but also on tablets, mini tablets, anywhere that there's wireless where we've supported the application. Often the insurance companies will provide the device themselves to the populations, whether it's to children with severe asthma or senior citizens with heart conditions if they don't have a smartphone of their own, because the expected cost savings are so significant. The cost of the device pales in comparison. We've also designed the solution so it doesn't require pervasive internet. It requires occasional internet. And we have scenarios where users that don't have access to everyday internet go to a library, to a school setting, to their local restaurant and upload the data. So there's a variety of approaches we've used. In terms of what could help looking to the future, I would just underscore that bandwidth is beautiful, and a nation with great bandwidth is a strong nation today.
Actually, my facts are that 132 million Americans do not own a smartphone right now. So that's, a lot of folks that, and even when you look at, for instance, AARP magazine, I'm a member, I'm not embarrassed. Their advertisements are for the jitterbug, right? So there's not this, our senior population is not embraced. Maybe the young people are clearly, but the seniors, particularly those who are disadvantaged, are, really considering this probably a luxury that they can't afford. So I hope we can figure out a way to not leave that many Americans behind as we embrace this new technology. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll let you back.
Well, I want to thank all of our witnesses for participation today. I mean, certainly what we've seen is entrepreneurship at its best, and I think we do rely on small business. It's 60% of the employees today, and it'll be, I think, 80% of the new jobs created in America. And it's that entrepreneurship that we see here is alive and well, bringing forth solutions in some cases to problems people didn't know they have. But as you've demonstrated today, these solutions are somewhat common sense, but they're only common sense after you discover them. And then as you present them, parents are saying, oh, well, of course, I'd like to be able to monitor my child's behavior, whether they're a diabetic or they have asthma, for the comfort of mind, or all of us with aging parents want to be able to know that we know what they're doing and that the doctors, know, because they do go to different pharmacies, they go to different doctors, and we all worry about that. So, what you've done today, I think, has helped describe where this is going. And any time you're on the cutting edge, which we are today, there'll be bumps in the road. But I think your testimony was good and, very informative to all of us. So thank you for your time. I'd like to ask unanimous consent that the members have 5 legislative days to submit statements and supporting materials for the record. Without objection, so ordered. The hearing is now adjourned.